News for you. For some reason, my scene switcher is not working, so just bear with me as I'm trying to figure it out. But we've got Biden picks Janet Yellen for Treasury Secretary, and I just want to get into how just absolutely astonishing. I mean, I guess it's not astonishing the fact that it happened, but it's more astonishing from the fact of we have a Federal Reserve that was created supposedly to be an independent central bank, and now we're at the point now where boom, you've got people from the Federal Reserve just coming right over and being Treasury Secretary. We've had this in the past before, where was it Geithner, John, who went from the did he go from Treasury? No, he went from Fed to Treasury as well. But was he the New York? I think he was in charge of the New York
I
Fed.
believe it was the New York. Yeah, I think it was the New York governor. Yeah.
And for those of you who don't know, I mean, essentially the New York Fed is the one who's calling the shots and who are really kind of running the show. But obviously, someone like Janet Yellen would not be, too far behind when it comes to that. And I mean, it's just absolutely insane. And literally the entire reason justification for and we all know why the Fed was actually created. It was created basically as a big money grab by the super power elite over there to basically do a coup against America. But what we were sold on this, and we as in anyone that was around in 1910 when the powers that be were sitting around their table discussing this at Jekyll Island. But what we were sold on that we needed an independent central bank, and then that independence would then we needed people that are completely had no conflicts of interest and were independent from the Treasury, so then that way they can make decisions on the best on behalf of American citizens. And now we have people going directly from the Fed to the Treasury. And again, it did happen underneath Geithner, and I'm sure it's, probably happened before. But, we picked the first woman. And so, the stock market's going crazy on this news because they know that Janet Yellen is just going to, print us into oblivion and, just keep
You,
going, business as usual.
you think she's gonna raise interest rates, Tim? Come on.
Not a chance. I gave my speech at
No, I'm
Anarchocos
just
saying
joking.
that they weren't going to be raising rates, ever. And, and finally now, they're finally starting to come to that realization that that is something that's not going to be happening. I do apologize to keep switching to the wrong screen over here because I'm doing this manually and I've got 9 million things going on over here. But it's just, it's just quite astonishing. And then we've got, Biden says that we should go and pick a Native American to be a U.S. ambassador because we've already got a woman as Fed Treasury Secretary, and now we need to have a Native American. And then who knows next? Now we've got to have
Well,
probably throw a transgendered in there, but we got to have probably throw a black
well,
guy in
you
there.
do, Tim. You do have the first transgender Congress. I don't know, Congress something over there in the United States. The whole thing that you're gonna choose somebody. You have to choose somebody based on who they are, and not what they've done or what they actually are. Have accomplished in their life. It just baffles me that anybody would do that. But of course, it's the same in Germany right now, Tim. They just passed the legislation that now you have to have 50% representation on corporate boards. So it's the same kind of mentality. It doesn't matter if they qualified or not, but just we gotta have it.
Yeah, absolutely. It means more about the form of saying, "Oh yeah, look at this. We can
Virtue
pound
signal.
our chest and virtue signal that
Yeah.
we have really done something here." And then and I just wanted to just mention as a quick aside. I didn't really want to spend a lot of time on that because you guys are smart enough to realize what that actually means. But now we have Jerome Powell saying the economy as we know it might be over forever. Says Jerome Powell, and it's just he's going on and saying we're recovering but to a different economy. Powell said during a virtual panel discussion at the European Central Bank's Forum on Central Banking. And all these guys, now the initial game plan for what I thought was going to be going down, and this was kind of going back probably it was right around the time that we that there was that Russian aircraft, that the Russians got blamed for downing an aircraft. And right before that happened, I remember telling the first time that I think it happened twice. One was a Malaysian Airlines flight. I'm getting the dates mixed up. I think it was around 2014 ish. But
Yeah, it was
anyways,
right around the big crisis.
but anyways, what I thought was going to happen is that we would try to get into a war with Russia or maybe China, and certainly if Hillary got in, that was basically the game plan. And then we would use that war to then say, oh, look at this, the dollar crashed, but it only crashed because of these damn Russians. And if it wasn't for the Russians or the Chinese or the Easter Bunny, then everything would have been fine. And not acknowledging the systemic problem that the Federal Reserve poses just by the fact that we have to borrow our own money into existence. It's the biggest fraud that's ever been around, but they know that that didn't work, and so they're getting desperate, and so they're throwing this Hail Mary pass, and this new Hail Mary pass, I feel like I'm going to sneeze, and I wanted to yell coronavirus when I sneeze, but apparently, I willed that one away and didn't have to sneeze. But anyways, now I lost my train of thought. But anyways,
What's up with COVID now?
so now the new Hail Mary pass is, the wars didn't work yet. And so now it's, everything was humming along fine, and we were the greatest economy ever. And, if it wasn't for this pandemic that, we couldn't have ever predicted or foresaw coming, then, everything would have been great. When the fact is, this whole entire economy is built on quicksand. If you have a central bank where we have to borrow our money into existence, I know I've said this before, I'll say it again. The first dollar that was ever created was created December 23rd, 1913, where we had the first dollar was created had 4% interest on it. If you lend that dollar out for a year and you want to get 4% interest, you have to owe $1 at the end of the year. Well, if you only created $1, where do you get the 4 cents from? You have to borrow another dollar, and then another dollar, and then another dollar. So literally from day one, it's mathematically impossible. And you've got jackasses like Donald Trump going out there and be like, I remember like the first month he was in president. I think that the first like 3 months you had the debt actually went down a little bit, but there were some adjustments because that's when people pay their taxes. And I'm like, listen, and everyone's like, see, he's going to have the debt go back down to zero. MAGA, MAGA, MAGA. Instead, he raised the debt more than any other fucking president that's ever been out there. And the fact is, you can't pay off the debt because the money is debt. And so if you don't understand that, you're not playing at my level. You're not playing at John's level. You're not playing at our audience's level. You are an idiot if you don't understand this, and you're only contributing to your own demise. And I'm sorry I'm getting pissed, but the only reason I'm pissed is because you have all these people out there who've been lambasting me for years saying things like, Trump is going to do this and Trump's going to do that. And now, when I literally make a video, Anarchapulco saying, guess what? They're going to rig these states, and they only need to rig a few counties in a few states, and here's how they're going to do it. There's something called fraction magic in the voting machines that I've been talking about for 4 years, and now the Q-tards are like, he did win the election if it wasn't for all the Democrats cheating, and who could have foresaw all this cheating? Guess what? I foresaw it, John foresaw it, Josh foresaw it, Ernest Hancock foresaw it, a lot of us foresaw it, but our voices were shouted down by all the Q people who literally have done more to bring communism to this country than even the communists, because what's happened now? The Federal Reserve has doubled in size. Did communists do that, or did Trump do that? Trump willed that on. Then you had, the debt has now increased faster than it's ever increased in the history of this country. The money print has increased more than it's ever gone. We've never been less free. And I just had somebody who then wanted to tell me on Facebook that why am I so mad at all the Q people? I should be mad at the communists. Well, it's the Q people that allowed all this stuff to happen and then cheerleaded Donald Trump doing this every step of the way.
Because they sat there doing nothing, right?
And everything good that Trump did, like getting out of the TPP, well, guess what? Anyone that was elected, as a Republican should have done that. All that's going to be reversed. All the climate stuff, that's all going to be reversed immediately. Everything, quote unquote, good that he did is all going to be reversed, like probably day one. So great. You bought us a few more years, except you didn't buy us any more years, because now we're in a greater tyranny than when we even left. And so, I'm sorry for, I'm just like in a bad mood today because someone just pissed me off on Facebook right before we got on here. And I will be getting off Facebook at the end of the year. And so that's why you guys should go to the link that's down below. It's /LibertyAdvisor.com/TJS028. And then you can get all the show links for here. And then also in the description too, there's also a bit.ly link that you can get on our email list. So we've got bit.ly/TimJohn email. And I do want to promote the fact that we just had an interview with one of the SpaceX co-founders that was awesome. Probably one of the favorite interviews, maybe aside from Sierra Griffin, that I've ever done. Also, then followed it up with an interview by Richard Grove. And the people that are subscribed to us on the email list and on the text list, you guys and girls are going to get it first. And then the people that are going to get it last are the people watching on YouTube. So if you're on our BitChute, if you're on our library, and we're doing all new branding and having people behind the scenes working on stuff. So right now the website's still obviously a work in progress. But, we're at the point where this information cannot be allowed on YouTube. We've already been kicked off World Alternative Media. But it's... Yeah, we see someone in the comments right now saying that, Trump caved on the hoax hoax masks and now the vaccines. And yeah, so Trump was kind of straddling that line where people were like, oh, well, he's not, pro mask. Well, yeah, he was, telling people, oh yeah, you should wear your mask, or you should, kind of straddling that line and saying things like he doesn't really think that,
And he was calling for the military to help, distribute all the vaccines too.
yeah,
So
2015, 2016, he was out there saying, all these things like, questioning vaccines. And now he's like, oh, look what I've done with Operation Warp Speed and everything that I'm doing. And me. And I've got the best words and the most fantastic words and the greatest words. And meanwhile, we've got guys like this who, let me try to see if I can let me try to, just 1 second, trying to get, share this video. Unfortunately, I don't think John will be able to hear this, but here is one of the military generals just last week talking about having forced vaccinations in America. And this is Trump's general up there. It's his CDC. It's all his people up there. And now all he's saying is, look, we're going to get this vaccine quicker than ever. So let's hear this out.
At this level, after working these details for the last 6 months, as I've told the team, 2 things we must have. One, upon emergency use authorization, all of America must receive vaccine within 24 hours, as I said. I think this is incredibly important. Fair and equitable distribution of the vaccine throughout the country simultaneously. There is
all Americans getting this within 24 hours. There is no, it basically saying that all Americans have to go get this. And I didn't see anybody push back on this. I didn't see Donald Trump push back on this. And it just absolutely just pisses me off that, that Trump can say, and everyone's like, oh, well, Trump got us out of these wars. Well, he didn't get us out of a single fucking war. Sorry. And he actually dropped more bombs than Obama did. But, I will grant that he didn't start any new wars. So, I'll give him, a big thumbs up on that. But, it's just to see everybody just sleepwalking into this tyranny, sleepwalking into all these shutdowns, to have Janet Yellen being now at the Treasury Secretary, or will be, nominated, to be in the Treasury Secretary. Well, yeah, I'm getting my all mixed up because she came from the Fed and I was at the Treasury Secretary. It's just absolutely, it's just astonishing. I mean, it's I've got no words for this. John, I'll let you talk because obviously I'm too heated up over all this bullshit that's going on.
Well, Tim, it's the same garbage here. They're calling for mass distribution, but now they can't really get it soon enough because others like the U.S. and the U.K. are making their own. It was interesting. Oxford just came out with a vaccine. The University of Oxford. It was like 70% effective, they're claiming. But what was more interesting is that they, talking about how usually it takes 10 years to make a vaccine, in a proper way. And at that point, even, you're looking at maybe like, anywhere from, 10 to 20% efficiency. So they really have stepped up their game, like suddenly they got a vaccine in under half a year. Getting created that is extremely more effective than it used to be. So I guess the technology and all the money that were put forward here has really saved the world. When you look at it, and just that they think that nobody's having side effects. Like you don't hear anything on the media. There was actually I just have the news on the CBC right in front of me, Canada broadcast. It's the state-owned station here, and they were actually asking vitamin D, and at the actual question said that questionable claims, and vitamin D is one of the most important things to your whole system. There's telling people to stay inside, and then they're wondering why they get a mass amounts of sick people suddenly after they've been inside all the time. These people are, so ignorant, and they're doing the total opposite of what a lot of, things that are out there already.
And now they're going to get even more sick when they catch coronavirus, or they catch the flu, or they catch a common cold, which happens. That's what happens to people. They get sick, and now they're going to get even more sick because they completely effed up their entire immune systems by staying indoors, by putting on all the alcohol, sanitizer, getting rid of everything. I've been to 6 different conferences this year with over 600 people at a piece, and I haven't gotten sick once. And my grandpa's like, "Oh, you're just asking for it, And okay, maybe I am asking for it, but maybe people should wonder how come I haven't gotten sick, while meanwhile everyone else has been staying indoors. And a lot of people go to the hospital, or people's been wearing masks, been doing all the bullshit, and now you've got guys like you and me who are out gallivanting around all the time, not really taking those precautions. And John, are you still there? Looks like your screen ended up going blank. Okay, we got
Oh,
you back. Okay, we see the taxation
got me?
step.
Okay, good.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, no, it's interesting, Tim. What we're seeing here too is, a lot of people they're claiming that, we have like 7 to 12 deaths a day here in Manitoba. And then, they get asked, like how many people, have underlying health issues, and, how it is, COVID affecting those people. And there's like, yeah, COVID is the major, player that made them die. Basically, they're saying about every single death that, basically is occurring right now. And of course, the PCR vaccine, the PCR test in itself, it's been debunked by, Karen Mullins, the actual creator of the vaccine. He says that, you could basically create 100% positives with the PCR tests because it's, if you amplify it enough. So the
And highly
whole,
recommend everyone check out the show I did with Dr. Andrew Kaufman
yeah,
that you can find on Library. It gets all into those details, where he, dispels that 7 ways of Sunday, or you go onto the Red Pill Expo and watch his hour-long presentation where he completely destroyed everyone on that subject. Sorry, John.
yeah, but anyways, let's get past the stupid vaccines, because this is, getting frustrating having to constantly mention this, because it's constantly getting thrown in our face. When you throw down your guard for a second, they're back out there again, touting this bullshit. Sorry.
It's 4D chess, John. Don't you understand what's going on?
No,
So now,
5D. It's not 4D.
yeah,
It's 5D.
5D. And then now we have, is another crisis imminent? The Fed must double QE in 2021, but it needs a catalyst. So here we have, a chart of the Federal Reserve balance sheet going up. You've also got one at the economictruth.org. Then you go down to John's website, and then it's down in the lower right-hand corner. You can click on to get all these different stats. We go to page 7 here, I believe. You can see where the outright QE purchases just went absolutely bananas, earlier this year, and now the Fed's balance sheet is back at an all-time record high, which also corresponding with the stock market, also now by the Dow Jones hitting an all-time record high. And then you've got from Seeking Alpha, is the Fed stuck with forever stimulus? And I would say yes, they are stuck with forever stimulus, because they've boxed themselves into a corner, and it's a corner that people like you and I have been warning about for years. And I remember in 2011 writing a client email saying that the Fed is stuck in a rock and a hard place, and they can never really stop their easy money printing, because if it did, it would make the stock market crash. Then when the stock market crashed, and then reverse course, and then it's going to create this feedback loop. And because politicians and presidents and economists can never really deal with any hard times, they're going to keep kicking the can down the road until they create the worst problem of all, which is actually destroying the currency. So thank you, all the Q-tards out there who have now helped. Obviously, this was going to happen. Whether or not Trump was elected or not, eventually we're going to have this. But now we're seeing the Great Reset. I've done a show on it. James Corbett's done a great show on it. Lots of alternative people in alternative media have done great shows on the Great Reset, so we don't need to rehash that. But what we should probably rehash is what's going to happen to all your assets during a Great Reset. So I'm actually over here putting together a Great Reset strategy for people to help get them through this. So you guys can head to my website at LibertyAdvisor.com to schedule a meeting with me. But what we're looking to do here is what happens. If you're holding on to bonds, basically all those are going to be wiped out. In a Great Reset. Holding on to cash, that's probably a lot of that's now it's going to be exchanged into something else. But you're going to see the assets themselves. So like stocks are probably going to go through the roof. Now whether or not they actually keep the purchasing power.
Look at Venezuela, Tim. For anybody that would like to know what stocks would do during hyperinflation, the default, it's exactly what you're saying there. They're going to go through the roof, but they're not necessarily, what happened in Venezuela was that actually, cryptos increased like drastically, and so did gold and silver. But the stock markets didn't keep up with the valuations of gold and silver and crypto. They were far behind. Even though they skyrocketed, they couldn't keep up with the true valuation that actually precious metals and crypto had. So there is that there's actually a use case where it was 2017 I believe, right, when we had the hyperinflation over there. Well, actually they're having a brand new one right now.
It's like which one? So
yeah, they actually had so then they changed the currency. Nobody actually sees this in the media. Nobody's talking about that in the media, that they actually got rid of the old currency, the devaluation, And then they went from the Venezuelan Bolivars Fuerte to the Bolivars Soberano. So now they have a brand new currency over there, and nobody, even in Bloomberg and everywhere, is talking about that they have the same currency. They're totally like so like behind the times in understanding financials and economics. It just baffles me sometimes, Tim. With these experts that come on TV and tout that they know everything, and they know nothing. Like,
yeah, the more you know, the more that you end up that you don't end up knowing. I think it's sort of a famous saying, but even though I just butchered that. But former BIS chief economist, central banks keep shooting themselves in the foot. So, do you want to end up going over this article, John? I know that.
Well, yeah, it's actually the first and foremost, Tim. It's he's bashing Bank of Canada, especially. If we go and look at Bank of Canada, Tim, if you actually want to go and if you go to my my website, there's still under the repo, I actually have the two last slides are Canadian central bank assets. So if you can pull that up as I'm talking about, what he's saying, but what he's saying is that, they're basically, he
damn, you guys make, the Fed look good. Basically, they're like making the Fed look like just child's play compared to what Bank of Canada has done. They were, I actually did a report on central banking, and the Bank of Canada since 2008 are up, 1,000 and something percent. Their balance sheet just and since the crisis, they had a 2-month span when we had the lockdowns in March. They actually had to insert and buy. They increased the balance sheet over, I think it was 450%. And then, of course, the government that he's, actually. Well, at least you guys sold all your gold off in, 2002, so he can always fall back on that. So.
Which is interesting. Me and Josh, we actually confronted Bill Manoda, the finance minister, about this. And, he was he said that gold is worthless piece of asset, basically, when we confronted him on it. And he was just laughing at us. But then he said, you're going to just merge it into SDR maybe, when the Canadian dollar fails. And then he's kind of laughs under his breath, as we kind of mentioned that to him. But where he's going right now, Mark Carney, that, lost his job for a wheat charity scandal. He was a speaking scandal where Trudeau and a whole bunch of others were implied into, which, given a whole bunch of money to Trudeau's mother and a whole bunch of other speakers, $250,000 for speaking engagement. But now Minot, Tim, is on his way to OECD in a leadership position there. And of course, OECD, what have they done? Look at the base erosion and profit shifting. If you look up BEPS, OECD created that one, way before suddenly you had the scandal, the Panama Papers, came after the OECD had this in place. So I think it was a total false flag by the OECD to implement this global tax treaty between 100 signatories. The United States has not signed up to that one yet, but again, back to the article, Tim, it's
and let's also point out that William White, which I keep thinking like Walter White from Breaking Bad, but William White is the former chief economist of the Bank for International Settlements, is taking central banks to the task. So this is not some nobody. This is a guy who used to work in the BIS, which we just did a show with Richard Grove, which I would say that's also probably one of my most favorite shows that we've ever done. So we had two just back to back, and actually even the one that's about to drop with Russell Gray, that one was awesome too. So we've had just a murderer's row of shows. And if you guys want to get the Richard Grove show first, where he gets deep into Council on Foreign Relations, deep into the Royal Institute of Affairs, deep into the Rothschilds, deep into basically every one of these shadow government groups, then you guys are gonna have to get onto the email list. And so that is bit.ly/Tim John email, all lowercase, and the Tim John email. You'll get on the Tim and John Show email list. Pretty soon, hopefully tonight we'll actually have it at timandjohnshow.com. But for now, just go to that, and then you'll also get the SpaceX interview first as well. And we just have to say that because so many people watch this. This is live on YouTube right now, but we've also done shows where we did part of that show live on with Richard Grove. Yeah. We gave you guys a little teaser for maybe half an hour. But if you want the full hour and a half show first, you're gonna be on the email list, and we send it out soon. Then you guys are going to be able to get that. But anyways, yeah, getting back to, I almost said Walter White, William White, he goes on to say they have pursued the wrong policies, talking about central banks, over the past 3 decades, which have caused ever higher debt and ever greater instability in the financial system. And if you guys want to see all these links, you can also go to the the link that we have up top where we have all the show links. So we've got like probably 20 articles over here that are linked. So YouTube doesn't like us linking them in there, so you guys can go to that link to get them all. But yeah, it's just
it's Tim. It's so interesting. What he's saying. It's basically down the line of what I wrote about in 2015. I wrote a massive article to start my whole book that's called Canada, the Greatest Economy in the World ? Because they came out and said that, oh, we're so great, we're fantastic. And I went in and actually found flaws in the CDIC. Banks are extremely over-leveraged. The private sector is massively leveraged. The government is getting into a lot of that. And now, of course, during the COVID, they increased their debt, their deficit, Tim, by 3,100%. The government, puts the United States pretty much to, look like nothing. And then of course they've been buying corporate bonds, they've been buying provincial bonds, which is like buying muni bonds basically in the United States. They've been buying that because our provinces are going bankrupt too. Our province of Manitoba has gone from a 200 million Canadian dollar deficit to 5 billion this year. So as you can see, the whole debt levels, it's just like an extreme debt bubble. Look at what's happening in Australia, where they didn't have the massive central bank interference by their Reserve Bank of Australia. They didn't do what Canada did, the mass all-in bailout of everybody, and they are actually, like, the real estate prices are down 30%. Here in Canada, they're still up slightly in the biggest economies like Toronto and Vancouver, because they still don't want to give up this massive bubble that they created. And when this bubble pops in Canada, it's just gonna I have no clue what it's going to look like. It's just going to be a complete mess, Tim. And Canada has really put themselves at a place that is just beyond, my imaginations with what they did this year during 3 months. And now they're continuing it. And as you can see on the balance sheet of Canada, now it's actually starting to pick up again. And I predict that they're going to probably do some heavy interventions again to keep the banks alive, because they're still doing repos, Tim, of 155 billion. Sounds like, nothing compared to the United States, but it's massive. There's still, it's actually increasing as we're talking right now. And that's actually overnight bailouts of the banking sector that is bankrupt.
And the other people that are basically bailed out, or probably going to be bailed out, is a company like BlackRock, who's basically the biggest landlord in the country, and especially in a place like Arizona, when in 2012 they were just going on the auction block and buying up every single house, basically sight unseen. And I was trying to buy a house at that point here in Arizona, and I had to go build one at the time because it was.
Oh, you mean Blackstone?
Blackstone or Black? I think it was BlackRock.
Wasn't it Blackstone? I think Blackstone is the one that bought all the real estate, like the hedge fund.
It's hard. I'm getting confused because actually one of the neighborhoods like right next to my house is called Blackstone, so that's also gets confusing. So, but anyway, I always get either ways. They're big, huge, multi-trillion-dollar funds, and we've got an article coming up on that later on. But if we switch over to, we can see actually where we have dark winter, percentage of adults living in households not current on rent or mortgage, where eviction or foreclosure in the next 2 months is either very likely or somewhat likely. And if you guys are watching this, on the video, you can see that these red and dark red. I mean, it looks like even like Arizona. I mean, that's like in the 30+% have not paid the rent, or very likely to face eviction. A few places are a few places like New York, which is actually kind of surprising, is down in like 10 or 11%. But, you start going through and it shows that 5.8 million adults say they are somewhat to very likely to face eviction or foreclosure in the next 2 months. And so there's probably going to be some sort of moratorium, or you had the Center for Disease Control issue a temporary suspension. And I want to know, how the fuck can the Center for Disease Control just go out there and, I'm trying to have like some compassion here, but how do they get to be the arbiters of, we're just going to go sign this little piece of paper saying that no one can get evicted. And I know what tough times were like. I mean, in 2018, when I decided to, create a wanted to branch out into advising on cryptocurrencies, I essentially lost my job and ended up having to sell my house, and then the state of Arizona wouldn't allow me to start working again for most of 2018. So everything that's going on with everybody else in 2020, I mean, I feel your pain because I had to go through that myself, except I didn't take any, even though, I was not in a great position, didn't take any bailout money, didn't take any food stamps, didn't take any of this stuff, and, had to go get into some debt, but now, business is rocking and rolling. So I do know, I'm not like a hypocrite. I know what it's like, and it definitely sucks. And my situation was basically a government sponsored situation, same as this whole pandemic, because I was waiting for the government of Arizona to just basically say, hey, you're working over here, now you want to work over here, we're just need you to, put out this little it was a thumbprint card I was waiting to get, and they just wouldn't send it to me. It kept jacking with me. But that's what they do when you're over the target and you're trying to put a thorn in the side of the man. They try doing everything they can to shut you down. Except now, when this whole pandemic struck, I was already doing all my meetings at Zoom. I already went virtual. I already got lean, and really when this hit and having bet against the stock market, I was in the perfect position. But at the same point, you shouldn't have. Who gives the CDC the authority to say, hey, by the way, if you're not paying rent, you can't kick out, renters? Who gives them that authority? I mean, they just gave themselves that authority. And the CDC is basically like not even like a government agency. So I don't even know how that there's just God now and just get to do whatever they want to do.
Yeah, Tim, listen, think about this, that the renters are not paying, then the landlords are not getting paid, and the banks are not getting paid. How are you going to keep that going for a very long period of time without constant bailouts of the system in order to prop it up? It's impossible. They actually put them, this whole COVID shutdown was the biggest clusterfuck that have ever happened in history with, the government. The government has done nothing but completely damaging and destroying. Of course, it was massively extended on debt. A lot of, especially here in Canada, was just ridiculous. Of course, in the United States, it was similar in some debts, some aspects of it as well. But what they've done with just shutting down the economy, basically here in Canada, you're looking at like 30 to 50% of small businesses will be done after this. They got moratoriums here until, January. So far, they're going to have to extend that because that's not going to happen. Everybody is basically bankrupted because of government intervention. And then they're trying to blame COVID for this. Their massive scam that they pushed forward by, bankrupting all these people. And then, of course, the big, conglomerates, small businesses will be done. Who would it be? It would be like Home Depot, Rona, it would be Canadian Tire, it would be Walmart, it would be
and what would make it easier for people to afford housing prices? If the housing prices collapse, that would make it easier for people to be able to afford houses. But what they want to do is they want to, game the system and keep everybody in this like renter economy where, you just make just enough money to pay your bills and be able to pay the interest on your credit cards as you get deeper into debt.
Well, the two assets, Tim, that they need to keep up because the baby boomers hold them as a majority of their assets is real estate and it's stocks. If they don't keep that up, they're going to lose their voters. First of all, of this whole system, and then second, the baby boomers are in a natural deflationary state, like pushing the economy into a naturally deflationary state because they need to sell off assets to live off of when they retire, and nobody understands this. This is going on, and that's the real cause of this whole crashing economy is, the deflationary state. They can't have that because remember what you told in the start, you need to expand that monetary supply, and if you actually have a lack now of currency, and you can pay off all the debt that exists, and it would still be that interest that you were talking about.
And there's no more, if you paid off all the debt and there's no more money because the money is debt, because the biggest problem this country has, and this world has really, is the fact that we have a debt-based monetary system. It's not just us, it's the entire world. And so if you have a reset, but then you reset us into an even bigger slave control grid, we're going to be worse off. That's exactly what's going to happen. They're going to use blockchain technology against us, which is why I've been trying to promote, you can either free us or enslave us. The average person knows absolutely nothing, which means is probably going to be enslaved. And so I'm not super happy about this. So, I am, sorry that I'm, basically in like a pissy mood right here, but sorry, I'm in a pissy mood as this entire world is going to shit. So it's just absolutely just pisses me off. And now we see articles over here from CNBC, or as I like to call it, CNBS. Some unemployment recipients face big overpayment bills. So we've got, different programs that are running out at the end of the year. We've got one from Wolf Street over here, no payment, no problem. In a rosy world of forbearance, official delinquencies plunge, credit scores of delinquent borrowers jump. But, and then we've got the other news too that, I'm not sure how to pronounce this, Qantas will only let passengers who've had the COVID vaccine on their international flights. Who didn't see that coming? And that's when I was going to play the video of the general saying that.
Yeah, but what didn't we warn about back in March, Tim? I do believe I actually mentioned the report from IATA, the International Aviation and Transportation Agency. Now it's ICAO. Came out, the UN agency that works with IATA. They came out with like a whole bunch of COVID related like structures of how you're gonna deal with the customers as they enter into the airport and what to do with them, blah 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 blah, all that garbage in order to keep this whole like scam alive, because people believe that. It was like, and people said to me, like, oh, can we just get this vaccine to get this, they call it temporary normal. It's like, no, it's not temporary. You guys,
can you just hurry up and give up your freedom? Is that way we can get our freedoms back? I mean, I can't tell you how many even Republicans are like, just wear the mask, and just, the quicker you wear the mask, the quicker we can stop wearing the mask. How about the quicker I don't put on a fucking mask, the quicker I don't wear a mask? I mean, it's that simple. I mean, when have you ever given up your right and then gotten it back quicker? Never. So the fact that you have Republicans are like, oh no, if you just put on the mask and then it's going to look better, and then Trump will then end up winning, and then once the Rona's away, then we can all put our mask away, and it's not about that. It's about beating us down into submission. And now we're receiving another article you sent us from the BBC. COVID-19, China pushes for QR code system based on global travel. And it's just, where are they going to end with this stuff? They're not going to end, because the amount of tyranny you get is the amount of tyranny you put up with. And unfortunately, we are pretty resilient people, so we're able to put up with a lot of different tyranny, John.
No, exactly. No, we let ourselves, get through a lot, and people that, go to airports. You remember, I was talking to my mom, remember when we used to travel when I was young, in my, between 10 to 16 years old, and we traveled all across Europe, and there was nothing but a tiny little, there wasn't even metal detectors sometimes that we went through, Tim, back in the day. And then of course the security industry had this ready in 2001. Well, look at now, like I follow the security industry extremely closely, by chance, because I'm in it, and of course that what they're pushing right now is that they're pushing for AIs that can recognize mask wearing. It also enforces social distancing and counts people that are surrounding in certain areas. Then enforce what they're having, all these different legislations that they're trying to push through. What's interesting, Tim? I just recently heard this moron of a lawyer coming out and saying here in Canada that because here in Manitoba, we're not allowed to even have one person over at your home other than your household right now, and so she said, this lawyer said that, well, in Canada we don't have any rights like in the United States. We basically, because we live in a democracy, we could take away those rights when we feel that anybody is put into the risk of a loss of life. Basically, that's what she was saying, and she said like there was no reason for anybody to try to sue anyone. So it's like a scare tactic coming out there trying to push this garbage of that if you stand up, there's no reason to stand up, because it really can't, because we live in a totalitarian state that could tell you what to do at any given time. That's basically what she's saying. Not that she wanted to say that on TV, but that's exactly what she would say to him.
I know, and now we've got another crazy article over here where it shows. Let me go to the top. From MarketWatch, beware of zombie companies running rampant in the stock market. A total of 19%, or 571 companies in the Russell 3000 index, are considered unviable. A widely accepted definition of a zombie is a business. We're not talking about people wearing masks here. We're talking about the businesses. So a widely accepted definition of a zombie is a business with an interest coverage ratio of less than 1 to 3 years. On that measure, 11% of Russell 3000 index companies are unviable, a figure that jumps to 19%, or 571 companies on a 12-month basis. Altogether, those 571 businesses employ more than 800,000 people. So you have all these companies that are basically just surviving off the fact they've got low interest rates. And if it wasn't for the fact they have low interest rates and they keep getting deeper and deeper into debt, they wouldn't survive. It's sort of like a basic, model from like a, John Perkins, economic hitman type scenario of what's unfolding hear us before us. And another thing that's unfolding right before us, we are, and speaking of, moron lawyers, we've got, Joe Biden, who is now, which, he finished, I think, like third to last his class in Syracuse. I'm originally from Syracuse, New York, so, I was, aware of that for a very long time. And going over here, we have an article from MRC Newsbuster, special report, the stealing of the presidency 2020. And I really don't even want to cover this because guess what? Anyone that saw my Acapulco speech could have seen where I went on stage and said, here's like the 6 or 7 different states that were super close last time. And all you need to do is flip a few different voting machines in a few different counties. And by the way, there's something called fraction magic, and that's how they're going to do it. And now everyone's like, oh my God, I can't believe that the Democrats would stoop to this and nobody saw it coming. And it's not about, look at me, we saw it coming. It's about we want to create solutions. And first off, voting is, basically, it's a waste of time. It's especially a waste of time if your vote doesn't even count. It's especially a waste of time if your vote doesn't count, and then you have electors who are the ones that pick the person anyways, when it's not us picking who's ever the president. It's the 0.01%. Even though I think Trump, was trying to do good things, the road to hell was paved with good intentions. Lots of Democrats are trying to do good things, and we're a lot worse off for it. So, I'm not really willing to give him a pass, but for this, Trump now basically saying that he is going to be stepping down, or basically he said that, hey, we're allowing the transition team to do its thing because, essentially, that's just what we have to do is be good stewards of, of the economy over here. But he's not, fully backing down. But on that news, the Dow surges more than 400 points, closing above 30,000 for the first time ever. And so, I'm surprised Trump didn't tweet out about this. Hey, look, now that I've stepped down, the stock market's soaring. So he's going to take credit for that one too. I mean, the guy takes credit for everything else. Then we've got, BlackRock, it's a company we mentioned earlier, and the $15 trillion fund industry should be broken up. And can't pronounce this guy's name. Anti-Monopoly Group says, okay, it's been a long day. And so, John, I didn't read this article. Do you have anything to say about them trying to break up these different monopolies here?
What it's all about is just that the fund, like any other businesses today, that are just constantly mergers and acquisitions that makes them bigger and bigger and bigger, right? And that's what happened to BlackRock. They just keeps on eating up, more and more people. Here in Canada, we got a BlackRock as well. It's called Power Corporation of Canada, and they basically own almost 3/4 of all the mutual fund industry in Canada. So you have these massive conglomerates basically are having, total monopoly almost over certain, markets. There's no competition whatsoever. And that's what they're talking about. And
specifically, the 3 companies they're talking about is BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street. They have become too powerful, and that the Biden administration and Congress need to rein them in. And then might I also point out that it was BlackRock who then were then managing the Fed's program to buy up investment grade bonds and junk bonds, including their own bullshit junk bond ETF fund.
I'm getting paid, that they then commission on that.
To then offload their own bullshit that at 100 cents on the dollar. I mean, that is criminal. Basically, it is against the law, and the fact that nobody gives a shit. Oh well, look at this.
Powell has his money with BlackRock. Remember that, Tim? That hasn't been talked too much about. He had his money managed with BlackRock.
Yeah, no conflicts of interest
and
there.
Of course, you got the Wachovia guy, Steve Mnuchin. Massive corruption there in California, of course, with Kamala Harris. Was apparently there was things going on there where she didn't actually put him into prison that he should have been into, and so on. So you got these guys like. Basically, and then you got the Kittards are over there like saying, "Oh, 5D chess."
But then, and now listen to this. So you got combined BlackRock, State Street, and Vanguard are the largest owners in 88% of the S&P 500 companies, according to a paper published Tuesday by the American Economic Liberties Project, a group that launched in February taking aim at what is seized as excessive corporate power. For instance, the big 3 hold leading stakes in companies including Apple, JP Morgan Chase, and Pfizer. So essentially, this is sort of like a shadow government where, it's sort of fascism. And then also, if you actually break it down and take a look at the pension funds, especially the government pension funds, a lot of the largest owners of these different mutual funds and these different ETFs, these different companies themselves are the the government pension funds, which is essentially the government then kind of like owning these companies, which is also sort of fascism. And we're just at this,
Well, yeah,
entire.
the Norwegian pension fund owns 1% of all stocks in the world.
And then we've got, J.P. Morgan over here is fined $250 million over risk management failings. I saw another article, I don't have it pulled up, where they were fined like $1 billion for rigging gold markets, then made $1 billion trading gold markets. So there you go.
Well, Tim, I don't know if people understand, but actually these big banks, they have litigation funds for this, for their scams, that they got going on. They've set money aside because they know that they're going to get sued and then have to pay some of it back in, bribes to the government to keep them doing all these scams all over again. It's just a massive racket. It's like, they should be charged under RICO. These guys, it's criminal. I think they actually tried to come after JP Morgan, they made a RICO lawsuit just not too long ago, and I don't know how that is going yet. If that's coming to fruition or it's been shut down, but these guys are just running a mafia operation where they have full control over the whole system, owning the majority of everything, and people sit there, giving everybody their money. The thing is, when you have these funds getting created, like over time, Tim, as you derivatize the financial system, you get more and more derivatives on top of derivatives on top of derivatives. So you get basically plays where you play a derivative, you bet on derivative, on the derivative, on the derivative, on a real thing. So there's nothing really holding, any real assets. It's a lot of derivatives, like a lot of ETFs doesn't hold, a lot of what they promise to actually be able to, hold as assets, what they're measuring against and so on. So there's a lot of, when you financialize the economy like this over time, you really just are slowly destroying the economy, but you have to invest your money, Tim, because the government is constantly, getting more money printed, and the banks are printing more money by lending out through fractional reserve lending and so on. So it's a Ponzi scheme that you have to put your money into work, because if you're just staying in cash, you're losing out big time, with inflation just stealing all your money.
Yeah, I mean, going in cash is basically going broke safely. But, there are times where, it might make sense, tactically or strategically, if you think a market's going to crash, and so you can go from cash into the market.
Actually, real deflation. But the problem is they're just papering it over.
And speaking of which, and papering over, and something that is benefiting from this would be the crypto markets. So we're taking a look at CoinGecko.com right now. Bitcoin is sitting at 19,121. It is November 24th, 2020. Within earshot of the all-time high, up 8% this week. Ethereum is up 24% this week. I know that their ETH2 staking contract that did sell out, I believe, this morning or late last night, I guess, depending on what time zone you're in and where in the world you're in. We've got, a lot of other crypto has been up a lot this week. Bitcoin Cash is up 38%. Chainlink is up 17%. Litecoin up 70%. Polkadot up 18%. Cardano up 56%. Stellar up 143%. Binance up 21%, EOS up 32%. Funny, the US dollar coin down 0.2%. Tron 37%, Monero up 7%. Keep going on and on and on. And and then Ripple up 127%. And I've been a Ripple hater pretty much since day one. And I will also say that the only video I ever exclusively did on Ripple was the January 3rd, 2018, when it was at $3.40. And I said, I hope all the people saying that Ripple's going to go to $10, I hope you lose all your effing money. And then my live stream cut out. It was like a 3-minute long video. And guess what? I say, even if you're up 127%, if you go down, like 98%, you've got to go up, massively to get back to even. So, I mean, it's not like you just go, if you're down 50%, not like you got to go up 100% to get back to even. But once you're over 50%, the math, changes to get even more dire. And so, all these Ripple fanboys, you guys are, trying to usher us into your own great, reset over here to help enslave people. So, hopefully those gains aren't, there's probably some like small pump and dump. Who knows what's going on.
Yeah, and what's even funnier, Tim, is that actually the central bank, like I talked to somebody at the Central Bank of Canada that told me that they ditched Ripple because it wasn't working the way they wanted it to. So they did like a non-blockchain type of system that they're currently working on, and which is called real-time transfer for those of you that are interested.
Was that part of the Project Jasper, or is that something else?
No, that was the Project Jasper actually that you and me talked about, Tim. But they actually ditched.
In the pre-Tim and John shows, like our prequel. So we do have,
Yeah.
so we will have, this is like, I think episode 28 of the official shows. Then we probably had another 20 unofficial shows. And that was one of them. It was something like Bank of Canada wants to
Yeah, and I was
enslave you,
actually
Project
I actually
Jasper.
had to go and renew my citizenship for Norway. So I get renew my passport, not my citizenship. But I was in Ottawa, and of course, at the time, Bank of Canada was involved in Project Jasper, which was Ripple, and also they were working with Project Uniper out of Monetary Authority of Singapore. But that one actually is alive still, which is the Quorum blockchain, which is JP Morgan's blockchain. It's live now. It's transacting. So they have their own blockchain, which is way better than Ripple, which is garbage. But again, I don't want to have anything to do with the JP Morgan Quorum blockchain. But again, it's a blockchain that actually works compared to ripoff.
Yeah, and speaking of ripoff, we've got Janet Yellen in her own words, all the different things that she said about Bitcoin over the years. And I wasn't sure if I should have put this here or when we were talking about Janet Yellen earlier, but anyways, we're talking about Bitcoin now. And she said things like in 2015, we do not interpret Bitcoin's popularity as having a relationship with the public's view of the Federal Reserve conduct of monetary policy. December 2017, it is not a stable store of value and it doesn't constitute legal tender. It is a highly speculative asset. And then October
I hope
2018,
it's not going to get legal tender. Sorry to say that, but I don't need it by
there
law.
shouldn't even be legal tender laws. First off, I think in a freedom you should just be able to transact however you want. But anyways, I will just say outright I am not a fan, and let me tell you why. I know there are hundreds of cryptocurrencies, and maybe something is coming down the line, like a JP Morgan Fed coin, that is more appealing. But I think first of all, very few transactions that are actually handled by Bitcoin, and many of those take place on Bitcoin or illegal, illicit transactions. Actually, they're not. There's been studies shown that actually very few, and you'd have to be an idiot to do that because everything is tracked, traced, and surveilled. Sorry, John.
Yeah, and compared to, I actually did this in 2013. Yeah, 2013 when I first, we had a CoinFest, it was called here in Manitoba. First ever, it was one of the first ones actually in the world of CoinFest that existed, which is really cool. But I was speaking at one of them, and I was prepared to get that question about, money laundering. And of course, when I looked up the money laundering numbers, they were like somewhere, I think, was it three? No, I think it was more like $9 trillion that were used for money laundering in US dollars on an annual basis by entities all across the world. So, compared to Bitcoin at the time, had a market cap like, what was it, like $30 billion or something back then. So it was just really funny to see these people that don't understand that, the actual biggest and actually the US dollar is way better to use for money laundering than Bitcoin, because Bitcoin you can track and trace, guys.
Yeah, and just in case the SEC is listening, we're not, or FBI, we're not condoning money laundering, just pointing out the fact that most of it is done with the U.S. dollar.
Yeah,
and getting
exactly.
back to the article over here, we see that Janet Yellen on blockchain is saying that blockchain could have very significant implications for the payment systems and conduct of business. Of course it will, because they're going to use a FederalReserve.gov coin, central bank digital currency, where they track, trace their value, put you on their control grid, put you underneath their thumb to control everything, and then eventually tie that into universal basic income, which is then, and I sort of glossing over this, but this is pretty much the biggest story in the world that people should be paying attention to, is the fact we're going into this global technocracy. But anyways, blockchain is very important, new technology that could have implications for the way in which transactions are handled throughout the financial system. So it seems like she is a lot more bullish on blockchain than she is on Bitcoin, and it's easy to see why. And then we've got Coinbase to issue a new crypto tax form for 2020. If you guys made a bunch of money in crypto, you can talk to me about how you can protect yourself. And we're talking about like seven-figure type gains, of how you can do different types of charitable trust, things like that, blah, blah, blah. Head to my website, LibertyAdvisor.com, to find out more about that. And Bitcoin breaks 19,000. New all-time high seems imminent, and we've already talked about this. Yeah. And then John had a couple more articles to kind of round things out. Justin Trudeau just revealed what went on during the G20 Virtual Leaders Summit. I didn't read this article, but John, what went on during the G20 Virtual Leaders Summit?
Well, it was more of the same of the whole Great Reset push, Tim, and of course the G20. What you got to understand with the G20, it's a part of the Financial Stability Board I've been talking about forever. They've been talking about recently, how to enslave people with regulations. They've been pushing out a lot about how central banks needs to implement or how they should implement central bank digital currencies. They've been talking about, the one thing that I just got to say before I go any further is, they talk about stable coins, Tim, like US dollar coin, USD coin, you got Tether, you got a bunch of other ones, nine others. But what these currencies are, they're nothing but stable coins. Like they're actually basing them upon the value of something that's loose in mass amounts of value, purchasing power. Like, are you guys not like getting this? Like, sorry, crypto people, but are you not getting that? The Tether and all those different, stable coins are the least away from stable that it can be, to be honest with you. So, understanding that, but what they're talking about is just, and of course, Trudeau, he's all about the Great Reset here in Canada. A Bank of Canada, Tim, just put out a presentation on the Great Reset with green bonds, green renewable energy, and all this stuff. And of course, it was Financial Stability Board's or former Bank of Canada chief Mark Carney that came over here to now implement this massive, Agenda 2030 sustainable development goals here in Canada to really control, the Canadian public and potentially, that letter that somebody leaked out that, I wasn't sure if it was a scam or not or just fake. People say, well, if you think you're fake, you shouldn't believe in that. But the problem is that exactly what happening in that letter that they wrote about has happened so far all the way now till December. They had rolling lockdowns coming into into December, sorry. And so, and then they're going to have a reset with IMF money coming in and then basically give people the opportunity to default on their debt and then lose their actual title to that debt that they held, their home, their car, and so on. And the government of Canada will take ownership over that. So that's
fantastic.
And like, I wouldn't put it past them, to be honest with you, and they've talked about, the special drawing rights being, used, how central banks are buying all these assets now, Tim. Well, they were talking about how, the SDR, that with the IMF with the SDR would just, do exactly what the central banks are doing to the economy, the local economies, but just to all the central banks, bailing them up by taking, their balance sheets and then putting all the money onto the balance sheet. And of course, in the United States, the SDRs are held by the Exchange Stabilization Fund that was created by stealing all the gold from the people back in the day in $2 billion. And then, used to sinister, manipulation of the currency that Trump was blaming everybody, China for, which he has actually a fund called the Exchange Stabilization Fund, which states that it's there to make the US dollar a stable currency. Think of that. But, back to the G20 meeting, Tim, it's nothing but a love fest for, exactly what is happening in the economy. And of course, they're pushing aside, they're hating on Trump. And second of all, what's really interesting is that Biden and Trudeau has a very close relationship because what you got to understand, and I talked to, I think it was what's his name? Oh my goodness, I forgot his name now, that we just had on autonomy there.
Richard Grove.
Yeah, Richard Grove. I was mentioning how, the Canadian campaign team was basically the United States team for Obama that was brought over to Canada to run the Trudeau campaign. So basically these two bozos, the liberals over here and the Democrats, they've been working together for a very long time. And they're using the same people to run, their different promotions around to, streamline, into a massive, because they really want like a EU for North America. They want Mexico and Canada and the United States to be the same. And who knows, Tim, maybe we'll get it soon. Maybe we'll be merged. But I do believe that a lot of, especially a couple of provinces here in Canada and a bunch of states will definitely pull out of that stupidity union that I would call it, but that's the wet dream, Tim, is to have these massive government controlled systems, But you know what we
So
really
now,
need?
well, I don't know. You just mentioned wet dream and pulling out in the same sentence over here, but we also have Zambia becomes Africa's first coronavirus era default. What happens now? And so, and then another article I just saw right now, like right this second. This wasn't one that's on the list, but if you guys go to the link down below, you can actually see all the articles we have, except for this one because I just found it right now. But New York City will have COVID checkpoints at key bridges and crossings. So very glad I got out of there 9 years ago. Well, I got out of upstate New York, but anyways, same deal. And it's they've got $1,000 to $2,000 fines, according to the mayor's office, if you don't follow their edicts. And just realized I didn't have that on screen, but let me get that screen right now. It's from MSN.com. New York City will have COVID checkpoints at key bridges and crossings. So it's just crazy. But anyway, sorry, but I know this was another one of your articles over here about Zambia defaulting. And what do you got to say about what's going on with Zambia defaulting?
Well, Zambia actually defaulted on the Belt and Road initiatives loans through the Asian Investment Bank back in the day. They actually had to forfeit their airport and a massive hydro dam, I believe, energy facility that they had to give up to the Chinese. I don't know which this one is. This one seemed to be Eurobond issue. So it's probably a IMF loan potentially, or a loan from the European Union potentially. I'm just looking here. No, it's an IMF. It seems like it's an IMF loan, and it's extended credit facility program. Yeah, so it's basically an IMF loan that they defaulted on here, Tim. And they of course have defaulted on the Chinese debt as well. So these guys, they're just predator lender. The Chinese just reinvented the IMF through their Asia Investment Bank. And of course, the United States is not a member there, which is funny because China is a member of the IMF, Tim. So you just see like how, but the United States did it from before. So the Chinese was like, well, let's just do what the Americans did, and go and act like loan sharks and steal from people by borrowing money to corrupt leaders. Interesting enough, though, Tim, is that Zambia. One of my good friends here in Winnipeg, he actually has a Zambian wife, and she had told him actually that in Zambia right now there's no restrictions or enforcements at all. So maybe Zambia is the place to go for Josh. I heard that Josh was going to go somewhere else, so maybe you should go over to Zambia, where there's a debt default happening right now, and maybe he'll have a lot of freedom there potentially, or what he actually can get here in North America, because what you're looking at, and I wouldn't put it past here in Manitoba right now with massive restrictions that they're going to really push that as well here, Tim. Checkpoints, but that's one of the big reasons why we should get the heck out of the cities. Do the opposite of what the United Nations Agenda 2030 suggests of massive smart cities. Where everybody lives. And then, we got to free the land from the people. We destroyed the land. So we got to take away the land from all the people living rurally that actually feeds everybody. A lot of them, at least, that live there are farmers. And now, of course, the farmers are dying out. So, it's almost like a apocalyptic, future that could be heading towards, because everybody's living in the cities. They don't understand that, chasing people from the countryside and making it harder for people to live in the countryside is destroying the farming industry. And you just get massive conglomerates there as well. Like they're talking about BlackRock being a monopoly, basically. Well, look at all the Cargill and other big farming conglomerates, Tim, that's out there as well. You end up with these massive conglomerates because what you really should have, you should have a free market where you have like a lot of smaller businesses, fighting to, be able to provide the best possible product and not have this massive toxic farming industry that are, being created by Monsanto and others, where they basically are killing people with their products, like Oxycontin. Let's get into Oxycontin, Tim, right before the end here. The pharmaceutical industry as well. Like it was funny how Bayer and Monsanto, merged because you got pharma and the agri industry. The agri industry is making you sick, so then the pharma industry has to give you something to then fix your symptom, and so they totally go hand in hand. But of course, it was what was it, $8.3 billion $8.3 billion settlement right now because of the OxyContin, crisis. I do believe there was a number, it's hard to find a number. I was looking on the Wikipedia page here, Tim, but they're saying somewhere like, was it 14,800 deaths per year, basically 42,800 emergency visits per year, basically, of OxyContin overdoses. So there's numbers that are said, from what I remember, don't call me on this, but I think I heard as high as 400,000 people have died over the years of OxyContin. And then, of course, that's actually, that was what killed them, because they actually took it, and people overdosed and died from it. And so we're talking about the coronavirus. Actually, OxyContin, that was created by a pharmaceutical company, murdered more people, way more people than COVID has so far in the United States. And of course, those numbers, with the mockery and testing and so on that we also talked about, it's just like, Tim, this is like all these massive, corrupt, big businesses that have been created in the United States.
Well, what else is going to overdose? It's like the Fed's been taking OxyContin, and you actually had a situation, I think it was like 3 or 4 years ago, the former Dallas Fed president, Richard Fisher, actually said that the Fed was being, this is his direct quote that you can find on CNBC if you guys just go on YouTube and search that in there, but you can find him saying the Federal Reserve was on heroin and cocaine and is now maintaining itself on Ritalin. Again, this is 3 years ago. And basically now we're past that and we're on like, fentanyl or something, because it's going absolutely insane. And eventually, maybe the fentanyl, maybe the whatever opioids you just mentioned will drown out your pain, but eventually if you take it too much, it's going to kill you, and that's what's going to happen. It's going to kill the entire economy. It's going to kill the dollar. The dollar was already doomed, but now they're using this whole great reset to issue an even more tyranny that's going on, and more people will die from all that than they will even die from coronavirus. And then you've got, look at this, in like 3 months we'll be able to, Operation Warp Speed, be able to deem these vaccines safe and effective. But meanwhile, it's been 100 fucking years. I've been way longer than that. It's been since eternity that marijuana has been out there, but yet we don't have any. That's still a Schedule 1 drug, and that doesn't have any known positive benefits being a Schedule 1 drug. But yet this whole RNA changing vaccine, which my thing is, if this is some groundbreaking thing that's never been done before, why'd they have to wait to now to figure out how to do it? Like, oh yeah, we were just waiting to some pandemic and then we're all rushing. Dude, the whole thing is BS. You got families like the Sackler family, who are the big OxyContin makers, I believe. I'm not 100% sure on that. They were the ones who are putting in money in 2016 in Arizona to prevent marijuana from being legalized in 2016, so then that way people would get more hooked on their opiate drugs. And luckily, that measure failed this year, a much better bill than the one that was in 2016. So I guess in hindsight, it's probably a good thing that one failed. But anyways, it was these cronies who were lobbying against it. Sorry, John.
Well, yeah, and isn't it the Purdue family that actually owns, OxyContin? So it's funny, we were talking with Melody Krell about the Purdue's, but I think it's spelled differently. But there you go. There's the real Purdue family, in control over just murdering people left, right, and center with their.
Well, the Sackler family is the one who owns Purdue. So Purdue Pharma is owned by Sackler.
Oh,
so
yeah, that's sorry, yeah.
So then it was the Sackler family who was the one who lobbied to keep marijuana being illegal in Arizona. And this time, I think it because of coronavirus, they didn't have as much of a lobbying effort against it, and ended up passing this time. But I'm sure between them and all the private prison industry and the police industrial complex and
that's
pharma.
Another thing too with Correction Corps of America, the imprisonment racket that is as well, to pay dividends on people imprisoned. That's a whole nother racket. Me and Quinn just recently watched that documentary on the Correction Corps of America. I knew about it. I actually wrote
I've never
about
seen it. I know about CCR, but which you can actually buy stock, and I believe the stock actually is not recommending it. I think it actually is CCR, where you can buy stock on the prison industry. Yes. But I didn't end up eating yet today, so I not today, but actually I didn't really have too much of a lunch. And as you could tell, I've been sort of in a pissed off mood because I look at all this news, and I didn't really want to do a show. And then
not help you, does it?
Yeah, I didn't really want to do a show. I wanted to go eat, but instead of eating, I had to go talk about Janet Yellen becoming Treasury Secretary and all these other assholes in the news that I wish I didn't have to go focus on and talk about. But if you guys want to see us talk to some really...
This is the best. Sorry, no.
Yeah, but if you guys want to get, I'm telling you, that SpaceX interview we did, I mean, Jim Cantrell absolutely did not hold back at all, getting into all sorts of crazy stuff and like NSA and things that you guys would not expect someone that was a co-founder of SpaceX to talk about. Highly recommend that one. Highly recommend the Richard Grove interview. Highly recommend the Russell Gray interview. That actually, I believe that one's actually out on BitChute right now, the Russell Gray one. But if you want to get those other two first before anybody else, they're not out yet. But we will be sending that out shortly to our email list. And so again, the list is bit.ly/Tim John email, and then that will be put on our email list. It has a number for phone number. You don't have to put the phone number in, but if you put the phone number in, then it can then be on an emergency text backup list. And it actually does cost a lot of money to send out those texts. So believe me, I think I've sent out like 3 or 4 ever. So we're not, spamming the hell out of you. And if anything, my big problem is I have not been using my email list at all. But now, old school is the new school, low tech is the new high tech. And that's one way to get around the censors. And we've got our list now backed up on a few different places, and also, on Excel spreadsheets and CSV files. So in that way, if they come and try to jack, like a MailChimp like they did to Dan Dix, then we are going to be able to, weather that storm. But anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you all for the comments. Thank you for putting up with me being in a pissed off mood. But, when you're...
I love it.
But when you're Italian and you're hungry, this is what happens. You get all pissed off. And... yeah, I was saying Italian in New York City now, and it just makes you want to punch, both the Cuomos in the face. But anyways, please sign up for that email list. That's one way that you guys can help, let us still be able to reach you. Because the biggest thing isn't about taking away our money and taking away the reach. It's about, not being able to have people actually see this information, hear the information, being able to expose what's going on is the most frustrating part of all this. And I think what someone had mentioned in the comments too, I think it was Silver Money Dude had mentioned in the comments something like, hey, when are people going to realize that these kooks have been saying all this time have actually been right? And it's just so frustrating that, we can be out here and a guy like me can say, Trump is going to win in 2016 and they're going to blame it on the Russians. And then, basically since March of 2017, I've been doubling, tripling, quadrupling, quintilling down on that Trump would lose to the Democratic field. And this is why. And then now it's like, oh, well, now I'm getting lambasted from the Q crowd, getting lambasted from the left and from the right. But love you guys for, paying attention to what we're doing over here. And it's not about trying to be right. It's about trying to, not be enslaved to this technocratic control grid. You guys can find out all John's stuff at theeconomictruth.org. And here I am just playing with a fidget spinner over here because I've got ADD and I've been sitting down working all day. But anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. And at John's website, you guys get all of his consulting information, get all of his charts and special reports and books. And then at my website, thelibertyadvisor.com, you can find out how to become a client. And then also, take a look, and also, if you have an old 401k, old IRA, we are putting together a great reset strategy to try to, get around this, tyranny that's heading on the pipelines. Anyways, I'm Tim Picciott. That's John Sneisen, who actually it's not John because I'm pointing at just a picture of myself. Okay, there's John Sneisen. And anyways, thank you guys so much for listening. Make sure you subscribe to us on other platforms.